When darkness falls in the Philippines, parents whisper warnings to their children. Come inside before the Aswang gets you. In a country of over 7,000 islands where Catholicism blends with ancient beliefs, one monster stands above all others in the Filipino psyche. A creature so feared that even today, up to 80% of rural Filipinos believe it walks among them. We are traveling to the lush islands of the Philippines to uncover the truth behind one of the world's most terrifying shapeshifters, the Aswang. I'm Carol Ann. Welcome to the InBetween. The Aswang. The word alone sends shivers down Filipino spines. But what exactly is this creature that has tormented the Filipino psyche for centuries? And could there be more behind these tales than just campfire stories? So let's tackle the first question first. What exactly is an Aswang? Answer is, I have no idea. I gotta hand it to the Filipinos. When you guys set your mind to creating folklore, you go above and beyond. Because unlike Western monsters that tend to have clearly defined traits, vampires drink blood, werewolves transform under the full moon, the Aswang is more like an entire category of shape-shifting nightmares. At its most basic, an Aswang is a shape-shifting, human-eating monster that appears human by day but transforms at night to hunt. But that's where any simplicity ends, because depending on which Filipino grandmother you ask, the Aswang might be completely different. According to Maximo Ramos, a PhD-wielding Filipino myth expert, the Aswang is fear turned flesh, perfect reflections of the things that we fear most. He spent his career mapping out the myriad of forms that all fall under the Aswang umbrella. And considering the nature of folklore, it shouldn't be a surprise that his classification system broke down 5 main categories that closely resemble the nightmares we deal with here in the West. First, you got your typical vampire class. Disguised as beautiful women by day, these creatures hunt by night, but not with the fanged teeth you've come to expect. They use a thin, hollow tube, kind of like a mosquito, to suck out their meals. These include things like the tick-tick and the wak-wak, both bird-like creatures named for the distinctive sounds they make while hunting, who feed on either blood, organs, or unborn babies. They're also known for their sounding farther away the closer they are. Very interesting and effective hunting technique. Next, you have your were-dogs, obviously the counterpart to our werewolves. Did you know that were legends in different areas pin the were label on whatever animal is the big man on campus for that area? Europeans have wolves, so the werewolf. India has tigers, so they have the were-tiger. But the Philippines do not have any large animal predators, so the top of their chain is the dog, thus the were-dog. We also have a category of witches. That's right, a whole category with 3 main types: the curse casters, the disease bringers, and the illness bringers. And watch your step, because these ladies are especially known for their vindictiveness. You have your ghoul class, which is very akin to our zombies. The big difference being that instead of looking for fresh brains, the ghouls feed exclusively on the dead. In fact, it's become custom in some areas of the Philippines that when someone dies in the house, no one sweeps the floor while they are lying in state, for fear that kicking up the dust will spread the scent of the dead, attracting the ghouls to the house. And when it's time to move the deceased from the house, they pop a hole in a chicken's jugular vein, throw it out the door, and let it wander off as a distraction while they move their loved one out of the house. And last but not least, we have the viscera-suckers. Wait, what? We don't have those. That's right. Those beings with a long, hollow, thread-like tongue that can reach through windows and suck out either someone's internal organs or their unborn child. The most interesting version of this nightmare fuel is the manananggal, A woman who splits her body at the waist with her top half sprouting bat-like wings. She then stashes her bottom half out of sight while she flies away in search of easy prey. Stashing her bottom half out of sight is very important because should some nosy neighbor find it, they can sprinkle the open flesh with salt or garlic or vinegar or ash, or they can slash at it with a blessed bolo knife, or just pick up the whole bottom half and hide it. If they do any of those things while the top half is out hunting, when the manananggal returns, her top half will not be able to reunite with her lower half, and she will die when the sun rises. And just be aware that we have only hit 5 broad categories. We haven't even mentioned the dwarves, demons, ogres, giants, dragons, or elves that all fall under the Aswang umbrella. Wow! Now, if they all look human during the day, how can you tell which ones are the Aswangs? Easy! Look for a large dog, pig, or cat with no tail. Anybody whose toes point upward. Anybody who glares at you. And your reflection in their pupil is upside down. They have no philtrum, the little vertical ridges on the upper lip. They try to dodge a blessing in church. How do you even dodge a blessing? Unkempt hair, bloodshot eyes, unusual behavior, or not wanting to talk with people are all signs you are an Aswang. I think I just learned something new about myself in that last sentence. So how do you ward one off? According to the Aswang Phenomena documentary by the Aswang Project, get comfortable. Bolos through bamboo floors, a needle in the door, a needle with a broken eye at the doorstep, garlic, onion, spice, calamansi, holy water, blessed palms, incense, a crucifix, the Lord's Prayer, any prayer backward, silver bullets.
Wait till I get going!
Gold, silver, or bronze, an inverted coconut rib broom, a photo of an old lady, throwing salt, throwing semen, a pouch of ginger, a pouch of coins, a pouch of ginger and coins, a painted white cross, a nail or knife under the pillow, ashes, large crustaceans, fire, loud noise, trumpet plant seeds or leaves, the snout of a sawfish, the tail of a stingray, the smell of burning chicken feathers, leather or tires, bright light, and sunlight. So just how did the Filipinos come up with this menagerie of creatures? Well, I'm sure it'll come as no surprise that the origins trace back to the origins of the Filipinos themselves. Pretty common story. The battle between brothers, one good god and one bad god. Guguran is the good guy hanging out on Mount Mayon, and Aswang is the bad guy residing right next door on Mount Malinao. Aswang steals fire from Guguran and accidentally starts the world on fire. Guguran saves the world by opening up the heavens and dousing the land with water to put the fire out. As you can imagine, Guguran is a little upset, raining lightning down on Mount Malinao, the scars of which can still be seen to this day. So it's not a big leap from there to the people assuming that every bad thing that happens to them must be Aswang's mischief. The people go on to develop a culture based on their beliefs in the dueling gods that was surprisingly not really patriarchal or matriarchal. Men governed the people, but women were the spiritual leaders and the healers, similar to a shaman. And they all had the same rights, things like land ownership, inheritance, divorce, and a choice of who they want to marry. That is, until Magellan and the Spaniards crashed the party in 1521. The locals say, "I don't think so," and kill Magellan less than a month later. But the Spanish don't take the hint and come back with the Catholic Church in tow. When they do, they look at the equal power dynamic going on and proclaim, "This will not do. Women can't be spiritual leaders." So they embark on a campaign to equate the female leaders, known as the Babaylan, as the physical embodiment of the Aswang evildoers. And it works. Most Aswang legends continue to portray the evildoers as female, though not all of them. Talk about a PR nightmare. These women went from trusted community healers to baby-eating monsters faster than new Coke went from the store shelves to the garbage can. But the Spanish didn't stop there. In 1622, Archbishop Fray Miguel issued a public decree in the Philippines basically saying, if you are an Aswang or you know where one is, you better tell us or you're in big trouble. And that must have worked too, because the Filipino people are still over 75% Catholic today and still seeing the Aswang. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, okay, Carol Ann, thanks for all the interesting history, but do you have any real stories? Of course I do. Our first story comes from a man we'll call Marco, who was about 9 years old when his nightmare began. One night, Marco awakes to find two women sitting on his bed. He sits up just a little bit to look at them. He can see one of them, but his pillow is in the way of the other. The one he can see has messy hair and grayish skin that's wrinkled like a lizard. They're sitting completely still, not moving. They're not even looking at him. Terrified, he slowly lays back down, but as soon as he does, the women begin inching closer. He can feel the skin of one of them touch his foot, cold with the soft texture of a diaper. He tries to scooch himself backwards away from them, but they keep coming closer until his back hits the wall, and his bed is in a corner, so there's no way out. Marco has no blankets, just a pillow he uses to try and cover his face. He hears this strange scratching noise as he feels something playing with his hair, like they're either running their hands or their teeth through it. Marco is terrified. Keep in mind that almost all Filipino children hear the stories of the Aswang at an early age. So he knows what this is and is just waiting for it to start sucking out his blood or his organs or just his life force. But everything stops when his mom calls out in her sleep, "Get away from here, you bad spirits." Marco looks up to find the women gone. He scooches closer to his brother and tries to grab just a bit of his brother's blanket, something he can hide under. His brother has most of it, but Marco pulls just enough of it away to wrap himself tight. As he prays, he feels hands moving all over his body while hearing that same scratching sound. He doesn't sleep that night, but at least he survives. The next morning, he tells his mom. Not only does she not remember telling the Aswang to leave her child alone, but she thinks he's making it up. Too bad for little Marco, that's not the end of it. The next night, they hear loud flapping sounds outside, the unmistakable sign of a manananggal. His mom finally believes him and sends him to sleep in his grandfather's room. But even there, Marco hears voices, a man whispering, "Tulag na mga bata." Sleep now, children. Over and over. For 2 years, these nocturnal visits continue. Sometimes Marco would wake to find someone lying next to him, who somehow disappears by morning. According to his sister, an Aswang must have seen him and taken a liking to him. That's why she didn't kill him. The nightly assaults only stop when they move over 1,000 miles away to Guam. Wow, this kid handles supernatural trauma better than I handle a spider in the bathroom. Our second tale comes from Taylor, who lived next door to what her entire family believed was an Aswang. Their neighbor was an 80-year-old paralyzed woman who, according to Taylor's grandmothers, just couldn't seem to let go of life. There are several telltale signs. Despite having air conditioning, the elderly woman always stayed outside in the heat, fitting the belief that Aswangs run hot. Her pregnant granddaughter never stayed at their house, and when she did visit, she always wore black, covered herself completely, and stayed in the back of the house, well away from the old woman. But the biggest red flag is that the woman survives several strokes, near-death states, and even receives last rites multiple times, but still clings to life. According to Filipino folklore, an Aswang only dies when someone accepts their stone, a small egg or chick-like object in their throat that passes their power to the new host. When the elderly woman finally passes away, Taylor's aunt says, "I guess her daughter finally got tired of taking care of her and accepted her stone." Our third account comes from a woman named Barb telling the story she's heard from her brother, who we will call Juan, who is about 7 or 8 years old when this encounter takes place. Juan and his family, and I say just Juan because Barb isn't born yet, live with their aunt and uncle in a silong, which is basically a house on stilts, so it's up off the ground. On this particular night, Juan's mom is in labor about to give birth to her 4th child. So Juan and his siblings are all sleeping in the living room when he wakes up to some rustling sound. He looks toward the living room window where the sound is coming from and watches in horror as it slides open on its own. A woman with long hair starts trying to climb inside, which should be impossible given how high the window is from the ground. The woman manages to get half her body through the window and starts looking around, sniffing the air like she's searching for something or someone. Instead of screaming, Juan squeezes himself between his sleeping brothers and hides under a blanket. When he finally musters the courage to take a peek, the woman's gone, leaving the window wide open. The next morning, their aunt doles out a few choice words at the boys for leaving the window open all night. Juan tells everyone what happened the night before and why the window was open. I have no idea if they believed him or not, but I do know that now he never misses an opportunity to tell everyone he knows about his brush with the Aswang. Can you buy therapy as a lifelong subscription? Our final story comes from a woman whose father, who we're going to call Jose, was walking home with friends after a late night of drinking when he hears something following him. Turning around to look, he sees it's a pig and it keeps oinking at him. Though thoroughly annoying, he just tries to ignore it, but the pig won't leave him alone. Jose starts walking toward an area that's better lit. And keep in mind, pigs can be pretty forceful when they want to be. Once he's back in more friendly territory, Jose, who carries a spiked stick for protection, yells at the pig, "You're not going to stop? All right then, come any closer and I'll kill you." The pig stops and stares at him. 2 of the neighbors hear what's going on and come out with machetes, and they all start chasing the pig. The pig takes a left, so the men take a left and stop in their tracks. The pig is now a dog, a shapeshifter. The next day, Jose grabs some of his family and friends and tracks the shapeshifter to a house in Banuyo. One of Jose's family members goes up to the owner of the house and asks, "Where is it?" The owner just points. "That house over there." So the shapeshifter posse walks to that house. They're about to knock on the door when all of a sudden there is a cat that appears out of nowhere on the roof and runs away. One of Jose's friends follows the cat into a secluded alleyway and screams at the cat, "If you don't leave my family alone, I'll come back and kill you." And the threat must have worked. The man from Banuyo never hunted in Jose's neck of the woods again. All right, we're at that point where we have to look at the rational side, like it or not. Could there be another explanation behind some of these Aswang stories? Yup. There is a seriously rare genetic disorder called X-linked dystonia Parkinsonism, or XDP, which is a hereditary condition where the body's muscles start to contract uncontrollably that causes the body to twist unnaturally, the tongue to protrude, and movements that To someone who doesn't know what's going on, might appear like this person is either possessed or is transforming into something. This condition wasn't even on the radar until 2003. I hear those wheels are turning. If this is so rare, how can it be mistaken as a shape-shifting Aswang so often? The answer is astounding. Because this condition, XDP, which primarily affects men, primarily affects the men of Panay Island, with 93% of all cases occurring on that one island, and 63% of cases occurring in the single province of Capiz. And with the magic of DNA sequencing, they have traced this disorder back 50 generations. That's 1,000 years. More than enough time for a legend to be born. So here's an interesting question. Is there ever a time when a group of 60 or more different nightmare-inducing monsters terrorizing a country for well over 500 years is a good thing? Yes! In 1941, just hours after bombing Pearl Harbor, the Japanese started bombing the Philippines, and within 6 months had control of the whole country. That's when the Hukbong Magpapalaya ng Bayang, the Huks, were formed as the Japanese resistance. Once that war ended, they were not happy with their post-war treatment and decided communism was the way to go. Not popular in a democratic country. By 1953, they were causing enough trouble that the Philippine Secretary of Defense, Ramon Magsaysay, called up his buddy, U.S. Colonel Edward Lansdale, an Air Force lieutenant colonel with a secret gig with the CIA on the side, to help him get rid of the pesky Huk rebels. Lansdale does his homework and learns that most of the country is terrified of the Aswang. So he sends his guys into the villages controlled by the Huks close to their camps and has them spread rumors of an Aswang in the area. They let that info percolate for a couple of days. Then one night, quietly grab one of the Huk soldiers, kill him, put 2 puncture wounds in his neck, drain his blood into a bucket, and leave his body where they know the Huks will find it. The Huks are gone from that territory within 2 days. But even more recently, the Aswang has become a symbol for tyrants who prey on the vulnerable. If you're as old as I am, you might remember the downfall of Ferdinand Marcos and his wife, Imelda. While half the people in their country were starving, Imelda somehow managed to amass 3,000 pairs of shoes. Postcards started to circulate showing the Marcoses with bat wings like a manananggal. The monster had become a symbol of political corruption. Even today, Filipinos use the Aswang metaphorically during elections and protests as a symbol of resistance to oppression. So, what is the Aswang ultimately? Is it a colonial tool of control, a misunderstood medical condition, a political metaphor, or something more supernatural? Perhaps film director Peke Galaga put it best. The Aswang is the umbrella representation of everything that is vile, disgusting, and evil in Philippine society. It reflects our deepest fears of betrayal, of the unknown, of the darkness that lives within us all. It's a monster born from historical trauma, colonial manipulation, and genuine human suffering. So the next time you hear something scratching at your window in the dead of night, or spot an unusually large pig following you home after dark, just remember, not all monsters have fangs and claws. Sometimes the most dangerous ones look just like us. So if you ever find yourself in the Philippines after dark, maybe pack some garlic, salt, and a spiky stick. Better yet, have Uber on speed dial. If you want to continue down the trail of legend and lore, go ahead and click right here. Be careful out there, and I will see you here again on the InBetween. That's not the end of it. The next night, they heard loud flapping sounds outside. The unmistakable sign of a manananggal. 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 Of a manang. Of a manana. Of a manana.